welcome to the event tonight to learn about the program. Feel free to turn on your video if you like. Staying muted for the time being is great, and then feel free to unmute yourselves as you would like to ask questions, which we certainly want to get to as soon as possible. Because I find that students attending these events, it's really helpful if they can get their needs met by asking additional questions to really understand what this program's about. So in short, the program is for students deciding majors at Niagara University. And what I would like to lead with is an introduction of one of my students who's graciously joined us tonight to give a perspective on her participation in the program so far, which is early on, mind you, although, you know, I guess Luna will probably attest to this, that, you know, it's already almost the fall semester completed, like first semester in college already under your belt, which I bet on some days it's felt like it's gone really fast, and other days maybe not so much. But so Luna is as I just said, a first semester, first year student who joined academic exploration. And in the program, she is assigned to me as her advisor, right? And so we've had some really great meetings so far this semester and discussing some of the majors that she's interested in otherwise. But I'm going to let Luna just lead off with just sharing some thoughts about the program so far, so that you students joining us tonight, you know, you get that perspective from someone who's just not that far removed from where you are. You know, and your perspective about, you know, considering this opportunity. So with no further ado, Luna, feel free to jump in and share some of your thoughts.
Perfect. So I'm Luna, and I really like the AEP program. I have been here my whole entire time at NU, and it has helped me have a lot of direction in what I want to do as far as my major goes. And I like how I've been able to take a lot of different classes with different interests of mine and figure out which area I want to go in as far as the major goes. So I'm really happy with my experience so far.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. So Luna, you want to share like a couple of the majors that that you're thinking about? And I know we talked recently in one of our appointments about an identified career that you're considering and where that connects a little bit, but just share just for a second, like some of the directions you're thinking about with majors.
I am looking into sociology and then environmental studies as a Bachelor of Arts. And I think they seem like kind of different directions, but there's a lot of overlap in a lot of the different environmental justice and stuff. So I'm really liking the direction I'm looking at.
Right, and refresh my memory of that career title that you shared with me in one of our appointments.
It's environmental sustainability management. So you just work with big corporations on how to be more sustainable and what steps can be taken to move in that sustainable green direction.
Yeah, excellent. So in Luna's case, right, what's really great about, you know, the program is that we work with each student in an individualized manner. So in Luna's case, she has a couple directions identified, and she also has a potential career on the table. And that's what we're here to help students with, right? So initial interest in majors. If you fall into one of these following three categories, for all the students that we could say, this is how we summarize who participates in our program. It's a student who says to us, I have no idea what I want to major in or where to start with that process, or I have 2 or 3 more ideas, like Luna stated. And so how do I go about exploring those directions and managing it all? And then a third group who says I'm maybe heavily leaning in one direction. I just feel better about being in the program and trying it out for a little bit before I'm committed to that major initially anyway. And then if it's not exactly, doesn't feel right, then plan B is already built in. So the idea of the 2 majors that Luna's looking at, the whole plan is for me to advise Luna with the courses that she'll be taking each semester to be fulfilling requirements in both directions. So that's really important for students tonight to understand, that in the exploring process through this major, what's really important to us is that there's a 4-year plan that we are guiding our advisement by. So all the courses that Luna will be taking, you know, we're spending time in the appointments together talking about what requirements are getting fulfilled by those courses in both directions, right? If Luna goes in one direction, sociology, or the other direction, the environmental studies, then, how do things shift around? Recently, we've also put on the table discussing a double major, which is an option for students at Niagara, right? So what I'm building on with what Luna's sharing is the understanding that we're here to help students really plan all the things they want to achieve while they're at Niagara in our program. So what does that mean as far as how you're going to be, taken care of in our program? You're assigned to one advisor. So Luna and I are going to build this working relationship the entire time she chooses to be in the program, which is up to 4 semesters before needing to declare. We're talking about those majors of interest. We're talking about career connections, and that can be different for everybody, right? Like, so I said those 3 different categories, but it can also be that a student might have a career initially identified and needs to look backwards to say what major will get me there to be prepared for it. Or I have these interests in majors, and how do we look forward at getting careers on the table in front of you to understand what you're going to potentially be able to do with those majors when you are graduating, right? So we have this good working relationship. We meet on average 3 times a semester to, again, do careful academic advisement, to talk about what you need to do for those majors in your 4-year plan to graduate on time, just like you would if you came into the university declared in a major. And then what might be the experiential learning opportunities that we can talk about that a student can pursue each semester. So in our program, we call them semester activities. So it's really just one thing per semester that we want students to consider implementing or experiencing, so they learn a little bit more about a major or a connected career, right? So to start off in the fall, we have a lot of our first semester students completing the strong interest inventory, which is an online assessment of interests. And it generates this great report for all these areas of your interest and what are connected careers. And then it connects to this nice job database where you can look those careers up and understand a little bit more about them. And then there's so much more we do along the way, but I don't want to take a half hour of just going on and on about our program as much as I want to build on some of the things that Luna's sharing, and then what the students in attendance tonight might want to ask questions about. So I want to jump back to Luna and say, what might be some thoughts about what it was like for you to consider coming to Niagara before you already got into my office and had some appointments and maybe exhaled and decompressed a little, right? Because it's a very common emotion for students to be a little nervous or a little anxious about the fact that they're not decided, or they feel out of step, like, oh, everybody else has a major picked out and I don't. We have a lot of students in our program. On average, we bring in 15% to up to 20 at times of the incoming freshman class. So there's a lot of students participating in our program. But Luna, what might you share as some of those initial emotions before you got to, day 1 of the semester and having those appointments, where you were with your process of pursuing majors or thinking about that as being a student not exactly decided yet?
I think going into college, I had psychology as my major over the summer and stuff. And I kind of just picked that because I was like, oh, this is good enough. So for me, finding the AEP program was actually more of a relief than like I don't know what I want to do. And we're like, I don't know what I want to do. And that's okay, because I have this great resource that is able to help me figure out, and I don't just have to settle for a major that I'm not fully invested in, and being able to kind of explore more about it and finding different areas and parts of psychology that I do like in sociology, and finding an entirely new idea. Like, I didn't even consider environmental science before I started the AEP program. So for me, it was very, very comforting to have this space where I was encouraged to explore and not like shamed for it. So I was very happy about it.
Good. I appreciate you sharing that bit, because that's usually what's hard for students to sort of put out on the table when they're worried about things. Like, nobody wants to walk around and go, I'm really super stressed about this. I want everybody to know I don't feel great about the fact that I'm not exactly sure about a major. And that's true, true of some students, and then other students it might not be such a pronounced emotion. But I want to have everybody tonight in attendance really understand that when you're walking around, because as I understand it, Joshua shared that a fair amount of you in attendance are potentially seniors. So as you're walking around your high school and you're listening to all these conversations of other students around you and where they're maybe thinking of going and what they're studying, and it all sounds very decided, because usually the students who aren't necessarily decided aren't like shouting that from the rooftops. They're usually staying a little quiet about it because they're not feeling greatest about it. And time again, I've experienced that once we have these opportunities to present some of the information about the program and give everyone an understanding about what's going to take place, then students start to see things pieced together and realize, okay, I'm not just going to be floating around. There's a lot of students like me. It's all going to be okay. Nothing's going to get totally derailed by not being a completely decided a student about a major the minute I step foot on a campus. And again, in our program, once you are decided, we transition you out as soon as you're ready. So there's no minimum stay in the program. But you know, my goal is always, as it is of the other advisors as well, to make sure our students leave as empowered as possible. So not only being really comfortable about the major they're choosing, but being really well aware of how to use the registration system, how to handle the courses that they're registering for, as far as maybe if they're making some changes and otherwise. And again, being really aware of the academic plan, of the curriculum in front of you and what you're going to be taking over the remainder of your time at the university once you declare and out of our program, so that when you move into your new major and you meet with your new faculty advisor who takes things over from there, you're part of that, that formula of really understanding what's going on. So that not just because your advisor tells you, oh, you should take these courses, you'll be, yeah, that makes sense, because you understand what it is that you need to do. So that's really important to us, that students are supported in all areas of what it means to ultimately decide your major at Niagara. But additionally, we want to make sure students are feeling supported overall, right? So being in our program and feeling as though you have someone to go to who will be able to answer any question that you put in front of us. And if we don't know it, we're going to get the right person or the right information to you to answer that question. So we pride ourselves on supporting our students holistically, because when you come into higher ed, it's not just about academics in the collegiate setting. There's so much more that students are dealing with on a daily basis that goes hand in hand with being a college student that you don't experience in high school, or you haven't experienced at any point so far in your educational career. So in higher ed theory, I should say, if a student can identify one person that they feel connected to at an institution, it's more likely that they're going to stay at that institution and graduate, right? So that's retention and graduation, which are the two big things that we're striving for anybody who wants to join us at Niagara and pursue these opportunities. Well, I'd like to open it up now to questions from students. So if you feel comfortable taking yourself off of mute and asking the question out loud, or if you want to put it in the chat box, right? And Joshua can address questions as they come in, either for Luna or myself, about what some of your concerns might be, or just things you want to know a little bit more about in relation to our program. So we'll open it up now to those questions. So sometimes it takes a minute for anyone maybe to jump in who has a question or wants to ask something. So while we're waiting maybe for some questions to come in, I know one of the big concerns about students is it possible to change my mind? If I'm exploring a major and then I change my mind, right? Like, am I locked in after a certain amount of time? And so the answer to that is no, you're not locked in. You can change your mind. And depending on when that's occurring and how far along you are, we're always going to talk about how things will shift and where that new direction picks up and what you need to do then pursuing that new direction, right? So that's important for students to feel like that there's some flexibility with this. And Luna already shared, right, feeling one way about things in the summer, and then when you got to Niagara and got underway, there's some more things that are being put on the table and that you're considering. Transfer credit, that's another big one that students want to know about, right? So if you're completing AP credit, or you're taking college level courses through your high school that are associated with like a community college, well aware of transfer credit and what requirements those courses would fulfill, so that we can explain to you, where you might already have a head start with some things being completed. So we pay close attention to that and understand, how the AP system works, and transcripts and otherwise, just to be sure that students don't duplicate things when you're already putting in the effort of taking these courses ahead of time. So I think we have a question that came in, right?
Yeah, a couple questions. First one for you, Carolyn, being, when do the students get connected with their advisor?
Oh, great question, right? So Luna can attest to this, right? So you get connected with the program right from the summer, obviously with orientation and filling out the additional questionnaire that we give AEP students to get a head start on advisement for their fall schedule for those initial majors they're listing to explore. And then you have the opportunity to meet with your advisor, or a advisor, I should say, in the summer to go over your fall schedule, right? So that you're meeting with someone in the AEP program. And that's usually your assigned advisor for the time that you are in the program, because we'd like to build those relationships right from the very beginning. The only disclaimer I have to put on this comes with my caseload. So we divide up everybody in the summer equally, because we want to have the opportunity to meet with everybody and give them all the attention they need for initially coming in. But usually my caseload has to lighten up a little bit so I can do my director duties for the program. So sometimes I have to, students that I may have met with in the summer, they're actually assigned to another advisor in the program. But you're always in good hands. But we try to minimize that as much as possible as well. So if students are able to, have that opportunity to meet in the summer, so we go from there.
Awesome. Next question being from a transfer student. Their question is, if they're transferring in from one major, can they still qualify for another major? And what would that look like for them as far as proceeding through college?
Oh, so meaning like if you're coming into, so you're coming into the university as an education major, right? You want to look at another direction, right? So that we would meet with that person as soon as possible to talk about what would those other directions potentially be. Like, what is it that you're considering? And then again, go through that same process of, okay, if you're transferring in and you're bringing all of this, well, not all of this, but however many credits of coursework, what requirements will that fulfill? So we want students who are transferring to really understand where things are already completed. And, if you were in one direction, but you're now thinking about another one, how that may all shift. So for transfer students, we do have a little bit of a limit about officially being in the academic exploration program. So we really cap that off at 45 credit hours. Because pretty much after that, you really do need to be declared and in a major, right, for it to be efficient. But here's the thing, we never say no to any student. So we will still meet with that student and work with them and take them through all of that information. But we just do it as a consultation, because you would come in as academic exploration and a week later we'd have to declare you because of just that amount of transfer credit. But anything that falls under it, we would just be really cognizant of that time frame of how far along a transfer student might be. So that's important to note. Any other questions so far, Joshua?
Yeah, just one last question. For freshmen, what are the introductory courses that students can take? And they're more curious about the flexibility they have as far as taking courses that interest them.
Sure. Hey, Luna, would you mind jumping in and sharing a little bit about some of the courses that you've been taking this first semester?
Absolutely. So the first semester, I am taking a religion course, a sociology course, a women in art course, and then an environmental studies. And there's a lot of flexibility. Mrs. Mackey and I actually sat down and kind of redid my entire schedule pretty early on, which was amazing. And I got to kind of take which classes were interesting and ability to like work well with the general education courses I needed. And within that, there's also a lot of flexibility because the women art class I'm taking meets the, I believe, cultural diversity class, like umbrella term, but it's a class that I'm really interested in. So even within the general ed classes, you're not just going to be taking like boring religion and, you know, English courses. You can really have a lot of freedom in that. And my roommate is taking an ecology class for her English class. So there's like, even in the general ed, there's a lot of room to direct yourself to what you're interested in.
Wow, I'm so impressed. She's doing so great with already naming some of the designations like cultural diversity and things like that, and knowing what's being fulfilled, which is, you know, definitely a learning curve for students coming in. So what Luna just articulated with those courses that she mentioned, there's a couple in there that are going towards directly towards majors like sociology and the environmental studies. And if you know, it's the double major, or if ultimately going in one direction is the way Luna ends up with, we're also still talking about how the other direction could be a minor. So environmental studies with a sociology minor or the double major, right? We put all the possibilities on the table. Mind you, that a student is interested in, not just, you know, to overwhelm Luna. I mean, this was coming from her in some of our meetings, but she very articulately described how, you know, she's taking these courses and it's a balance of both. Things that are going to general education requirements and things that are counting directly towards majors. So when students come in, that's another very common question. So I'm glad this came up from the students participating tonight. You don't come in and just take, like, let's say what are considered exploring courses. You're taking the real deal courses that all students take. And it's like essentially we treat you as though you're temporarily in that major. Right. So the whole goal is that along the way, you're completing a good balance of requirements, because you really should be ideally working on both categories. So again, really quickly, I just want to say to students in attendance, we don't mean to lose you in some of these terms that we're using or how we're describing the curriculum. That's definitely something that you learn more once you come to higher ed and get familiar with the terms. But in short, no matter what major you pursue, there's always going to be two sets of courses you have to complete. One set's the major courses, which makes sense, like sociology major, you're taking sociology courses. And then the gen eds are the ones that they cover this wide range. And that's what we call a liberal arts education, where you have this overview of learning and you're not just concentrating on your major only. And that's pretty much every higher ed institution, public and private. You know, the only institutions you go to where you're only concentrating on very specific major only type courses are usually your colleges for profit, like Bryant and Stratton and et cetera, where you're just doing the one deal and not learning all those extra things, right, for that liberal arts framework. So that's where we shift back and forth between those two categories. And if a course towards a major isn't the major the student ultimately pursues, then we have a spot for it to come back over to the general education requirements, or any of those other combinations that, you know, like I said, Luna's looking at. And so like she said, even within those gen eds, there's flexibility and choices, and hopefully you're picking things that sound interesting to you to learn about, which just enhances that liberal arts education even more. So yeah, great question. Other things that come to mind for students tonight. I think we got a little lull after that initial batch of questions that came in. Well, maybe we'll give them a minute to keep thinking about things. Joshua, do you want to add some things about some of the admissions highlights at this point to make sure they're aware of any reminders you need to give students?
Yeah, just to quickly touch upon, just because I know I did a quick review of who was joining the meeting, and not everyone had applied yet. So I definitely recommend applying if you haven't done so, especially before December 10th. We are currently offering a scholarship to all students who apply before December 10th and visit before December 10th. All those students get $5,000 in scholarship. So you don't have to have your transcript submitted. You don't have to have your SATs. We just want the general application. It's free, so it's not hurting you. And you can submit your application through the Common App, which is becoming very more frequent, or you can go simply our website and fill out our application there. Either method works. Again, you don't need to have everything submitted with it, but just starting the application and doing a simple visit, touring campus. Monday through Friday, we do offer tours of 9 a.m., 12 p.m., and then 2 p.m., as well as doing additional, we call late night visits. They can either be virtual or in person, and they typically run around 4, as well as we do have an open house coming Saturday that will be about 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So if you didn't want to miss school, you can always go to that. I think we have about 128 students right now enrolled, or individuals that are enrolled to come, so that will also qualify. So just want to touch upon that. I definitely recommend visiting and applying before the 10th if you haven't. So
I think we had another question come in.
yes, let's see. This may be a general admissions question. Joseph, I can answer that question separately for you. But Carolyn, I just had a question from my own experience at the university.
Sure.
Being that I was a business major, I still found that I was able to take courses outside of my major that interested me. So while these students are in the AEP program and they're trying to decide their path, are they still able to float some courses in there? Like I took a life science course where all we did was focus on the studies and relations of endangered species, as well as the environmental impact that could limit habitats. And being a business major, that is a little bit outside of my region to study, but it was available. Do the students have the same opportunities in the AEP program to take those kind of courses, even if they're not something that they want to find a career in?
Yeah, absolutely, right? Like, because Luna was mentioning the art course, and so the idea is that you should certainly be concentrating on the major that you want to pursue it, and learning all that you want to gain as a knowledge base for that, for eventually graduating, let's say, in that major and connecting a career. But again, that's what higher ed is about, which is always something that's been exciting to me, for the job that I do and working with students, to see them have the opportunity to learn for the sake of learning. And hopefully that's in areas of things that you're interested in. So when we talk about those general education requirements, again, and Luna mentioned like the umbrella terms, meaning there's some gen eds that are very specific, like you have to take a writing course, a literature course, but then even again, when you take your literature course, there's a range of topics. So some are very standardized in a way that everybody's sort of taking the same thing on some level, but the ones that are the umbrella terms, meaning like, all right, the term is called cultural diversity. And there's courses that come from, all over the range of offerings, like sociology and history courses and otherwise, that qualify as cultural diversity courses, because something about that course is teaching you about an element of culture in our society or otherwise, right? So that's where you get the opportunity to try to pick things that you would enjoy learning about that are fulfilling then those gen ed requirements. And that's, again, that set of courses that doesn't involve the major. So I've had students, like Joshua is explaining, as a business major, you wouldn't necessarily be thinking that that's what you were going to be studying, but there's areas also that are just completely open, like let's say what's called a free elective. Those are gen ed requirements too, and that's, like it sounds, a free choice, anything goes. So I've had students who've been in like a computer and information science major who want to take a painting class, or a forensic science class, and just all these different opportunities to fill gen eds that then just gives them this, really nice rounded experience of, again, the opportunity to learn about lots of different areas. And this is how sometimes students find new majors too. So, they'll take a course for a gen ed, and suddenly it'll spark this interest, and then realize it could be part of a major, and then it's something new that they put on the table. So they're kind of useful that way as well.
Awesome.
I'm going to put my email address in the chat box so that, oops, I did, hang on, I got to change it. I was doing it. I got to do it to everyone. Let's do that again. So that's my email address, and you can feel free to email me any additional questions after this evening. Like Joshua mentioned, if you want to come to the campus for a visit, I'm sure getting in touch with him to get that set up for a tour and otherwise. But you are welcome to come meet with me one-on-one. And if you want to bring, parents, guardians, whoever's important in your life about supporting you in higher ed to join, I am happy to meet with students and families and otherwise one-on-one at the university, or again in this virtual format if it's more convenient, so that you can get maybe some more very individualized and specific information to your situation. So feel free to reach out for those opportunities. And Luna, did you spend some time coming to any admissions events prior to Niagara?
I did, and I actually attended a lot of the admissions events in my junior year because my brother's a freshman here. Well, he's a sophomore here now, but he was at the time. So I was able to see a lot of campus. And I think one of the first times I came to an open house was when I was like, this is where I want to go, just because physically being on the campus, it really helps you visualize yourself coming here. And they take you like on the tours and stuff to classrooms you will be in. And it's really, really funny coincidence. I'm actually in one of the classrooms I opened house at this semester, which I just think is so cool because it's like, now I'm here as a student. So I really highly recommend open houses if you have the opportunity.
Yeah, like that full circle experience, right? And that's great, Luna. I'm so glad you shared that. I do wholeheartedly agree that coming onto campus is ideal. There's the advice that you can take to pick a institution that if you connect all the dots, like the majors that they offer and residence life and what are the activities and what's the dining hall like and the food and all of that great stuff. But there's really something to be said about being on the campus and walking around and experiencing the culture firsthand. And just making a decision that is also that, if you will, a gut decision, like that little feeling you get inside, and that you wouldn't otherwise just by being on our website or getting information, like you said, from these other means of just looking up details. So I agree entirely that it's a much different experience than to be visiting in person. So if that's possible, I also champion the opportunity as well. So any final questions? Because I know we've been here now, by the time we let everybody in, I think we've had a little bit over a half an hour, probably exhausting some of the information that you just need for tonight. So we don't want to just keep dragging it out to keep you from, your evening, maybe getting back to homework or finally having dinner or whatever might be on deck for the rest of your night. So if there's any final questions, to add them to the chat box now. I just want to take the time again to thank Luna for joining us and her wonderful perspective and invaluable information that she's been sharing for all of you tonight to benefit from. And then Joshua, do you want to take it over from here for anything that you might need to wrap things up with?
Yeah, just looking to see if anyone had any general admissions questions. If so, they can be popped in the chat. I know, Joseph, your situation is going to be a little different being an international student. A lot of those questions and circumstances are very specific, which we do have an admissions advisor that specifically handles more or less outer region geological students. I did send you their email. Feel free to send them an email with any questions, but any other questions from students as far as admissions, anything I can assist you with? Speak now, or
Yeah, I was gonna say it might be quick. It might be quicker to take yourself off mute and ask now, and maybe for the benefit of everybody. But again, maybe to enter it in the chat box.
Yeah, whatever works.
Yeah.
I was in high school once. I know how it is.
Yeah, I know. All right. Well, maybe do they have your contact information too, Joshua? For
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in the chat right now, just in case anyone has any questions after the meeting.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, and you're welcome for the thank you that we got from Dora, I believe. You are so welcome. So glad you joined us tonight. while you were all like maybe putting anything in that's final, to know, you know, both Luna and I want to wish you all like a really great rest of your academic year. I know it's still a little early on, but not that early. I mean, my gosh, it's December tomorrow. So here we go, right? It starts to really pick up steam. So for the seniors that were in attendance tonight, I hope the rest of this final year for you in high school is wonderful, and you're back to all the great events that are in person and post-pandemic, and all of those things that have been finally letting up and changing, and that return to normalcy a bit. So we all wish you a really great rest of your academic year. We hope it goes well in all categories, academically, socially, and otherwise. So enjoy the rest of your year, and we hope to hear from you soon if there's anything more that we can do for you folks. So thanks for attending.